The train jolted violently, making passengers stumble, but she didn't move. She was frozen, pale, her eyes wide with invisible terror. When she finally collapsed against the pole, people looked away, except one man. A single father holding a worn portfolio of drawings, who rushed forward, held her trembling hand, and whispered, "You're safe. You're okay. I got you." She clutched his arm tightly, looked into his eyes, and whispered something that made his heart stop. "I know your daughter." Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. The Manhattan-bound 7:42 a.m. train was usually just noise to Miles Carter. Between the screech of metal, morning yawns, and mumbled podcasts, no one noticed anyone. But today something shifted. Miles stood gripping the overhead pole with one hand, the other wrapped around his worn-out portfolio. A black zip-up case stuffed with crayon portraits, finger-painted stars, and paper flowers. It was all his 7-year-old daughter Lila had left behind when he dropped her off at the Children's Oncology ward 30 minutes earlier. She made him promise to give the folder to her favorite nurse. She didn't say a name, just the nice one who doesn't talk much. He never expected to find her gasping for air halfway down the train car. Miles spotted the signs instantly, her hands trembling, fingers twitching, chest heaving like she couldn't breathe. Her back was pinned to the metal pole, and her eyes, they weren't here. They were somewhere else, somewhere dark. He dropped his case. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats, scrolling past human suffering like it was just another headline. But Miles moved fast. He crouched beside her. "You're okay," he whispered, palms raised. "Just look at me. Try to breathe with me, okay? In through your nose, slow. 1, 2. Her lips parted, but no words came. Her chest shook violently. "Try again. Just follow me," he said, breathing slowly and steadily. "You're not alone." Her hand suddenly reached out and gripped his forearm, tight. Her nails dug into his sleeve. Her mouth moved, barely audible. "I know your daughter," she whispered. Everything stopped. He blinked. "What did you just say?" She nodded weakly. "Your daughter, Lila. How do you—" "I'm Evelyn," she said, still gasping. "Dr. Evelyn Hart, pediatric oncology." And with those words, the train around them faded into silence. She wasn't just some random woman. She was her, the quiet one always in the background, the one Lila had drawn in chalk like an angel with folded wings. He helped her to the empty bench beside them and sat close. "You're the nurse Lila always talks about." "I'm not a nurse," she said, catching her breath. "I'm the oncologist." Miles couldn't speak. He could barely feel his own heartbeat. "She talks about you every day," Evelyn added, her voice steadier now. "She draws you into every picture. Says you're her world." His hand trembled as he reached for the portfolio. "These are for you." She opened the zipper slowly and stared. The first paper had 2 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. One had curly brown hair like Lila. The other had long black hair and a doctor's coat. There were stars drawn around them. A bubble above the doctor's head read, "You're gonna be okay." Tears filled Evelyn's eyes. "She said you told her that," Miles whispered. "I did," Evelyn nodded. "The night she asked if she was dying." The train lights flickered. Outside, tunnels blurred past. But inside, 2 strangers sat side by side, bonded by a little girl's quiet courage and a moment of unexpected vulnerability. Miles glanced at her. "Thank you for helping her." "No," Evelyn said softly. "Thank you for helping me. I didn't know anyone saw me until today." The train hissed into the next station. A few people stepped off. A few stepped on. Neither Miles nor Evelyn moved. Her fingers still trembled slightly in her lap. She was no longer gasping for air, but her chest rose and fell in uneven waves, like someone who'd barely survived drowning. Miles sat quietly beside her, his hand protectively resting on the portfolio, like it held the last pieces of his soul. "I'm sorry," she said at last. "For what?" he asked. "For falling apart like that. In public. For dragging you into it." "You didn't drag me anywhere," Miles replied gently. "You saved my daughter's heart. The least I could do is hold your hand while yours catches up." Evelyn's lips parted slightly, a quiet breath of disbelief slipping through. She didn't know what she expected from a stranger. Pity? Politeness? Distance? She didn't expect this. "Thank you," she whispered. Miles nodded. "You okay to keep going?" Or do you need to get off at the next stop? She shook her head. No, I want to ride a little longer. I don't want to go back to that building just yet. They sat in silence for a moment before Evelyn finally said, Today was the first time I froze like that. I've handled dozens of cases. Watch kids lose hair, weight, movement, sometimes breath. I've delivered good news, terrible news, and things even worse than that. But this morning, she looked down at her hands, flexed them. There was this little boy, she said. Tommy, 6 years old. He'd been fighting leukemia for nearly 3 years. He smiled every time I walked into the room, even on the bad days, even when he couldn't walk anymore. This morning, he looked at me and said, Heart, it's okay. You can stop trying so hard. Miles didn't speak. He just listened. He died 2 hours later. Her voice cracked. And then I got on this train, she said, because I thought if I could just get away from the building, I could breathe. But when it stopped between stations and the lights flickered, it felt like the air got sucked out of the car. Miles finally looked at her, not just glanced, but truly looked. He saw the exhaustion etched into her eyes, the kind you don't get from staying up late, but from staying strong for too long. I'm sorry about Tommy, he said, and I'm sorry you had to carry that alone. I still do, she whispered. Every name, every room. He swallowed hard. I get it. I mean, not exactly, but close. I'm a single dad. When my daughter was diagnosed last year, everyone left. Her mom couldn't handle it. My job said they didn't have flexibility for my situation. Friends disappeared. Family turned silent. She glanced at him, her expression softening. But my kid, he continued. She laughed through chemo. She named the 4-pole Mr. Pokey. She made me wear capes in the hospital. I wanted a break every day, but I didn't, because she smiled at me like I was a superhero, and I refused to let her down. Evelyn's eyes shimmered. You didn't. Miles chuckled faintly. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if I'm giving her enough. She deserves a house, a safe place, a yard to run in. All I can give her is a tiny apartment and pancakes for dinner. Sometimes, Evelyn said, pancakes and love are more than enough. The train swayed gently. Outside, sunlight streamed through tunnels. Inside, two strangers carried each other's burdens without asking for anything in return. Miles leaned back. Funny thing is, I almost missed this train. If I had, I wouldn't have been here to catch you. Evelyn smiled softly. Or maybe I wouldn't have been here to catch you. They didn't know it yet, but that moment on the train would mark the beginning of something that would change both their lives. Something deeper than luck. Something stronger than pain. Something that started with kindness and would soon turn into redemption. The train rumbled onward toward the city, its rhythmic hum wrapping the car in a strange stillness. Around them, the world kept moving. Commuters scrolling phones, a toddler pointing at pigeons through the glass, a businessman grumbling over missed calls. But for Miles and Evelyn, time had started moving differently. The air between them felt weighted. Not awkward, just full. Like both of them had finally spoken words they'd kept buried too long. Evelyn exhaled, almost like she was shedding layers of silence. Can I ask something? Miles nodded. Why did you stay? She said. When her mom left. When you lost your job. When everything got hard. Why didn't you just walk away too? He took a moment. Then, softly, because Lila never did. Evelyn blinked. She never gave up, Miles continued. Not once. Not when the hair came out in clumps. Not when the fevers hit 104. Not when she threw up 4 times in one night and still wanted to draw me a rainbow in the morning. He looked down at his hands, calloused, chipped nails, the marks of a man who'd done whatever it took to survive. She deserves someone who doesn't give up on her. Someone who chooses her. Every single day. Even when it hurts. Evelyn's throat tightened. That's rare. It shouldn't be, he said. She smiled faintly. Then she asked, Do you ever get angry? All the time, he admitted. At the world. At the doctors. At her mom. At God sometimes. But never at her. What about yourself? Miles paused. Yeah, he said. Especially when I can't give her what she needs. Especially when I lie awake wondering if I'm doing any of this right. Evelyn nodded. You are. How about you? He asked. Do you get angry? She hesitated, then gave a sad little laugh. I used to think I wasn't allowed to. I thought being a doctor meant staying strong. Unshakable. But now I have moments where I just want to scream into the void. You should, Miles said. You carry too much. I break down in the stairwell sometimes, she confessed, where no one can see. Miles looked at her. You don't have a hide anymore, he said quietly. Not for me. She turned her head, eyes glistening. No one had ever said that to her before. No one had ever offered to hold space for her pain. She was always the one holding space for others. A long silence followed, comforting, not empty. The kind of silence that grows between people who have seen the inside of each other's wounds and chosen not to look away. Then Evelyn said something she hadn't said out loud in years. I lost my brother to cancer when I was 19. Miles didn't flinch. He was only 14. He was my best friend. We used to build pillow forts and pretend we were knights guarding a castle. I became a doctor because I couldn't save him. And I thought, maybe if I saved enough others, I'd stop feeling like I failed him. Miles reached over and gently touched her hand. You didn't fail him. You just loved him. Her breath hitched. I think he'd be proud of you, Miles added. I know I am. She looked down at their hands. You barely know me. I know enough, he said. I know you held my daughter's hand on the nights I couldn't be there. That's enough. Evelyn closed her eyes for a moment. And then, softly like a secret, I wasn't planning to go into work today. Miles raised a brow. I left Tommy's room this morning and sat in my car for almost an hour. I told myself I was done, that I couldn't watch another child fade. I was going to call in and drive away. But I got on this train instead, she said. And found you. Miles gave a small smile. Maybe Lila knew. Maybe she sent you an angel for a change. Evelyn laughed gently. She's already been mine. The train slowed as it neared the next stop. Neither of them moved to get off. They weren't done. Something unspoken was still unfolding. Something that felt like healing. Or maybe the beginning of it. The train coasted to a gentle halt at Lexington Avenue. The doors opened. A wave of morning chatter and footsteps swirled into the car, but neither Miles nor Evelyn stood. The world outside moved on, but they stayed still, suspended in a quiet moment most people never find with strangers. Miles watched her carefully now. Not in the way a man watches a woman, but in the way a human watches someone carrying too much alone. Evelyn rubbed her eyes. I should probably head back soon. My shift starts in 45. You going to be okay? He asked. I don't know, she replied honestly, but I know I'm not as alone in this as I thought I was. The car began to move again, and Miles reached into his coat pocket, pulling out a paper slightly crumpled from the morning rush. Lila made this last night. She told me to give it to the quiet lady with the sad eyes. I didn't know what she meant at the time. He handed it to her. Evelyn opened it slowly. It was a sketch in blue crayon. Two people holding hands beside a hospital bed. One wore a hoodie with a hole in the elbow. The other wore a long white coat with a stethoscope and a ponytail. There were 4 words scribbled in the corner. Sad eyes can heal hearts. Evelyn's chest rose sharply. She bit her lower lip to hold the tears back. It didn't work. She sees people, Miles said, even when they try to hide. She's incredible, Evelyn whispered. She's why I haven't quit. A long beat passed before she said, I'm sorry you've had to do this alone. That nobody helped you. That you had to work construction gigs at night while still being someone's hero in the day. Miles tilted his head. You knew about the jobs? She nodded. I checked your visitor log after Lila mentioned your schedule. You were coming to the hospital every morning before clocking in somewhere else. Sometimes twice a day. I didn't think anyone noticed, he said. I did, she replied. I watched the way you'd kiss her forehead like it was the first and last time. The way she lit up when you walked in. He smiled faintly. She gives me a reason. Evelyn looked down, then up again. I have a favor to ask, she said. And you can say no. All right. There's a grief support group I'm supposed to host tonight. For parents who've lost kids. But I can't do it. Not after today. Would you come instead? Not to speak. Just to sit in the room. Just be there. Miles blinked. Me? You're the kind of person people need to feel near when they're hurting, she said. You don't need a degree. You just need a heart. He hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I'll be there. The train screeched again. They were nearing the hospital stop. Evelyn stood slowly, gripping the metal bar for balance. I don't know what this is, she said, eyes still on him. But I hope it's not the last time I see you. It won't be, he replied, rising too. The train doors opened. Before stepping out, she turned and gently touched his arm. Thank you, Miles. Not just for today. For everything. He watched her walk out into the corridor, shoulders a little straighter than before. breaths more even. Like the weight she carried had lessened, just enough. And as the train rolled forward without her, Miles sat back, clutching his daughter's drawings with a kind of reverence he hadn't felt in months. He didn't know it yet, but what had started with a panic attack on a train would unfold into something none of them could have imagined. Because that night at the grief group, Evelyn wouldn't be the only one whose life changed. The community center basement was small, dimly lit, and smelled faintly of old coffee and plastic chairs. The kind of place people only entered when they had no one else to talk to, and nowhere else to put their pain. The fluorescent light above flickered every now and then, almost like it was unsure if it wanted to be there either. Miles stood at the doorway, awkward in his threadbare jacket, gripping the folder of Lila's drawings like a security blanket. His boots were still caked with dried mud from his last handyman job, and he hadn't had time to shave. He'd almost backed out on the walkover twice. But Evelyn's voice had stayed with him. You don't need a degree. You just need a heart. There were 8 people inside when he entered, mostly older, all of them quiet. A woman clutched a photo frame of a teenage boy. A man stared into a styrofoam cup like he was begging it to speak for him. No one spoke when Miles sat down. Evelyn hadn't arrived yet. A gray-haired woman in a nurse's badge stepped up to the front. We usually begin with introductions, but we have someone new tonight. A guest. 8 pairs of tired eyes turned to him. Miles froze. He hadn't planned to say anything. Just sit. Listen. Be present. The nurse nodded toward him, giving him the floor. He cleared his throat. Hi. I'm Miles. I'm not a therapist or anything. I'm just a dad. A pause. Then, somehow, he kept going. My daughter's name is Lila. She's 7. She was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia 11 months ago. Her mom left the same week we got the news. I've been doing it solo ever since. A few heads nodded, slow, understanding, solemn. I've lost jobs because I wouldn't leave her side. I've had to sleep in my truck between shifts. I've lied to landlords. I've pawned my dad's watch just to afford her prescriptions 1 month. I've broken down in the hospital bathroom more times than I can count. And still, every morning, Lila looks at me like I'm the sun. He stopped, swallowing the lump rising in his throat. I came here tonight because someone asked me to. A woman who saved my daughter's spirit, even when I didn't know it needed saving. She had a panic attack on a train this morning. Most people looked away. I didn't. He paused. Maybe because I know what it feels like when no one sees you. There was silence. Then the man with the styrofoam cup lifted his head. What's she like, your daughter? Miles smiled. Smart. Fierce. Funny as hell. She once convinced an entire hospital floor that her 4-pole was actually a robot bodyguard named Captain Pokey. A few chuckles. The woman with the photo whispered, She sounds amazing. She is, Miles said. And she taught me something this week. That kindness doesn't have to be big to matter. A crayon drawing. A soft voice on a hard day. A hand held in silence. The door opened quietly behind him. Evelyn stepped in, hair pulled back, face pale, eyes wide with disbelief. She hadn't expected him to speak, but she sat in the corner, silently, and listened as he finished. I used to think being strong meant not breaking, but now I think real strength is showing up when you have broken and still choosing to care. The room stayed quiet, not because they had nothing to say, but because they didn't want to interrupt what had just healed something deep inside them. The nurse nodded. Thank you, Miles. After the meeting, people lingered. A man handed Miles a dog-eared book on parenting through grief. A woman gave him a slip of paper with a resource for discounted meds. Someone even offered him part-time work fixing boilers in their apartment complex. Evelyn approached him last. I didn't know you'd speak, she said. I didn't either, he replied. You helped more people in 20 minutes than I have in some months. That's not true. She looked at him. You gave them hope. He shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe I just gave them a place to put their sadness for a while. She smiled. It was different this time. Not forced. Not tired. Real. I want to help you, she said suddenly. Not out of pity. Not because I feel obligated. Because you've helped me. And because I think you and Lila deserve more than just survival. Miles stared at her. I know someone at a foundation, she continued. They fund full-time caregivers and housing stipends for single parents of pediatric patients. If I vouch for you, if you let me, I can make the call. For a long moment, Miles said nothing. Then he nodded, tears brimming. Thank you. Later that night, Miles tucked Lila into bed with her favorite stuffed octopus and kissed her forehead. She was half asleep, but murmured, "Did the quiet lady like my picture?" He smiled. She cried. And then she smiled. "Good," Lila whispered. She needed both. Miles stood in the dark for a long time afterward, watching his daughter sleep, knowing for the first time in a long time they were going to be okay. Because on a random Tuesday morning, on a crowded subway car, a man chose kindness when everyone else chose distance. And because a woman, drowning in her own silence, chose to whisper the truth to a stranger. And from that moment on, everything began to change.